Welcome to the Conscious Kinky podcast, where we explore sexuality, connection, and power through awareness and intentional choice.
At the Kink Collective, we help people reframe their relationship with sexuality, build deeper connections, and become safe spaces in the world.
Each episode invites reflection, not performance.
And the conversation continues inside Conscious Conversations, our live community space. Welcome to the conversation.
The reason trust has not been built is because people have heard your words, but they have not experienced enough change.
What if the issue is not that you don't understand the pattern? What if the issue is that the pattern still keeps happening?
Because insight can be powerful. That's just the start. Apologies can matter. Responsibility can open the door.
But trust is rebuilt through what becomes different over time.
Not what you meant, not what you promised, or what you explained.
But what actually changed? What stayed changed? Not just what changed in the moment. What can people now experience from you that they couldn't trust that you would do before?
Woo!
So fun.
Welcome to the Conscious Kinky podcast. I'm Joshua.
And I'm Kat. This podcast exists to help people understand themselves more clearly, relate more honestly, and stop repeating patterns that they don't fully understand yet.
This month, we're in month 9. The theme is repair. What happens after awareness? What happens after impact? What happens when we can finally see the pattern and now have to choose what we do with it?
In episode 1, we talked about repair versus apology, because saying I'm sorry is not the same thing as rebuilding trust.
In episode 2, we talked about responsibility without shame, how to own your part without turning against yourself.
So today, we're going to move into one of the more important parts about repair, and that's changed behavior, also known as follow-through, doing it consistently.
Because trust is not rebuilt by how deeply you understand the problem. Trust is rebuilt when the people impacted begin to experience something different.
This is where repair becomes real. This is where the rubber hits the road, as it were. Not in the words, but in the change in the pattern.
The theme for month 9 is this: awareness means nothing if it doesn't change how you move.
And this week we're asking, where am I asking people to trust my words more than my actions?
And that question can be very uncomfortable. I'm getting uncomfortable now thinking about it because we've not dove into this yet. Because a lot of us want our growth to be believed as soon as we name it. Guilty. We want people to trust, I see it now. I get it now. I'm working on it. I'm different now.
But the people in relationship with us may need more than our realization. They may need evidence.
Because if a pattern has repeated over time, then trust often needs repeated evidence over time as well.
And we're really being generous saying may, and I think it does, exactly. If someone has experienced you as a defensive, they probably need to experience you listening over and over again.
If someone has experienced you as avoidant, they may need the experience of you returning again and again.
If someone has experienced you as inconsistent, they may need your experience to show follow through over and over again.
If someone has experienced you as intense or pressuring, they may need to experience your pacing, patience, and restraint again and again.
This isn't punishment. It's rebuilding trust through lived experience.
And this episode is about exactly that. The movement from I understand to I can feel that I understand by how I move now. I can think of moments where I understood something about myself before I had actually changed it. I can explain the pattern. I can name where it came from. And I could see how it affected people. I could even feel genuine remorse. But then, under pressure, the old behavior still came back.
That's such an important truth, because understanding a pattern does not automatically interrupt it.
And I'm super guilty of that. I might understand that I get intense when I care. But if I do not practice pacing, people may still feel pressured. I might understand that I overfunction when I feel unsafe. But if I don't practice asking and pausing, people may still feel managed. I might also understand that I defend when I feel misunderstood. But if I don't practice listening before explaining, people may still feel unheard.
That's where the real work begins. Because insight feels good. Insight can feel like change. But the relationship doesn't feel the insight unless it becomes behavior.
Yes. And I've had to learn that people don't owe me immediate trust just because I finally understand myself.
That's a hard one.
Yes, it is. Because when you finally see the pattern, you may feel like, but I get it now. But I really mean it now. I'm working on it. And all of that may be very true, but the other person may still need time to experience the difference.
For me, I've had to look at the gap between what I value and what I practice. Because I deeply value honesty, but still avoid a hard conversation. I value clarity, and then I still hope someone understands me without me saying the thing directly. I also value repair, but still delay returning to a conversation because I'm uncomfortable.
And that's the gap. Values are very important, but practice is what makes them trustworthy.
And follow through is where people find out whether our values are embodied or just words.
Or just preferences.
Or just preferences.
Insight is not transformation.
All right, let's talk about insight. Insight matters. We need awareness. We need language. We need to see what we're doing.
But insight is not the same as transformation. Insight says, I am aware of the pattern. I see the pattern.
Transformation says, I'm practicing something different when the pattern gets activated.
Insight says, I know I shut down.
Transformation says, when I feel myself shutting down, I name it, I take a pause, and I return.
Insight says, I know I get defensive.
Transformation says, when feedback comes, I breathe, listen, ask one clarifying question before explaining myself.
Insight says, I know I rush connection.
And then if we've had transformation, we slow down, respect pacing, and stop trying to turn chemistry into immediate access.
And that's the difference. Insight describes, transformation practices.
And follow through is the bridge between the two.
Follow through is hard because most people rely on emotion to change. They feel bad or they feel inspired. They can feel motivated or clear. And in that moment, they believe it. I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again.
But that emotion fades, right? The nervous system returns to familiar patterns. Stress comes back, fear comes back, and old habits come back. And without structure, it's the old patterns that often win.
That's why change behavior requires more than sincerity. It requires practice and structure. It requires repetition and humility.
And it requires being honest about capacity, right? Because some people promise transformation when what they need to actually promise is that they're going to practice.
And that's so important. Instead of saying, I'll never do that again, maybe the more honest repair is, I see the pattern. And I know it may take practice. Here's the specific behavior I'm working on. Here's what I'll do when I notice it happening. And I understand that consistency matters.
That kind of honesty is more trustworthy than a dramatic promise.
Because big promises without structure can become another big disappointment.
And realistic practice without follow-through can slowly rebuild trust.
Yeah, I see myself in all of this language.
I know. Trust is not rebuilt because someone says, trust me.
Trust is rebuilt through evidence, repeated, consistent, lived evidence. Evidence that the behavior is changing.
If someone has been hurt by your inconsistency, they may not trust the first moment of consistency or even the second or third. They may appreciate it, but trust may need to take time.
If someone has experienced your defensiveness, you have, they may still brace the first few times you listen well, not because they're punishing you, because their body remembers the pattern.
If someone has experienced your avoidance, they may not fully believe that you'll return until you return more than once.
That's the part we have to respect. The person impacted may need time for their body to learn. This is actually different.
And you can't argue someone into trusting your growth. You practice until your growth becomes believable.
And that's a powerful line. You can't argue someone into trusting your growth. You can practice until growth becomes believable and they reflect it back to you, which you've done in the past, and it was life-changing for me. One of the reasons follow-through fails is because the change is too vague.
People say, I'll do better. I'll be more mindful. I'll communicate more. I'll work on it.
And those aren't bad intentions, but they're not specific enough to practice.
Change behavior needs to become clear. What will you actually do differently? When will you do it? What will you notice? And what will interrupt the old pattern, right? What can the other person expect to actually experience?
Instead of I'll communicate better, try this. When I feel myself shutting down, I'll say, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need 20 minutes and I'll come back.
Instead of saying, well, I won't get defensive, try, when I receive feedback, I'll take one breath, repeat back what I heard, and ask if I understood correctly before I explain.
I'm still practicing that one. Instead of I'll be more consistent, try this. I will confirm plans the day before, follow through on what I commit to, and if something changes, I will communicate early.
Instead of I'll stop rushing, try I will ask if the other person wants advice before offering it. I will pause before escalating the conversation, and I'll let people answer at their own pace.
Specific behavior is what turns repair into practice.
And practice is what makes growth visible. All right, so let's be honest. Consistency can feel humbling.
Yeah, it does. Because consistency does not always get applause. It doesn't always feel dramatic, and it's not always exciting. It may not create immediate forgiveness either, and it may not instantly restore closeness.
Sometimes consistency is quiet. You do the thing differently, again, and again, and again, and nobody throws a parade.
That can be hard for the part of us that wants credit for growth.
Absolutely.
Guilty.
Sometimes we want people to see how hard we're trying before they've had enough time to feel safe with the change.
But repair is not about being praised for trying. It's about becoming trustworthy in practice.
And that doesn't mean that your efforts don't matter. I mean, they do, right? But trust is not rebuilt by effort alone. It's rebuilt by the experience of changed behavior over time.
This is why this week is incredibly important, because it asks a few questions. One specifically is, am I willing to keep practicing even if no one immediately rewards me for it?
That's maturity. That's repair. And that's what follow-through looks like.
Follow-through becomes much more possible when there's structure.
Because if you rely only on memory, motivation, or emotion, old patterns will almost definitely return under stress.
Structure might look like a few things: a journal prompt, a reminder on your phone, a weekly check-in, or a therapist or working with a therapist, coach, or accountability partner, a breathing practice, a script you use when you're activated, a plan for repair or a pause agreement, a commitment you review every morning.
Structure doesn't make growth less sincere, it supports growth.
And that's important. Some people think if I really cared, I would just remember.
But care without structure still fails under pressure.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that. I mean, especially if you're on the spectrum or have ADHD, it's like that shit becomes very difficult. Structure helps your values survive your nervous system.
That's a line, right? Structure helps your values survive your nervous system.
Because when you're triggered, tired, defensive, overwhelmed, or afraid, you need more than good intention. You need a practiced path back.
Another part of follow through is patience with yourself and with the people impacted.
Patience with yourself doesn't mean excusing the pattern. It means understanding that repetition builds change.
And patience with others means not demanding that they trust the change before they are ready.
You might be practicing something different, and they still might be cautious. And that can be very frustrating.
But the question is, can you keep practicing without making their caution your enemy?
Can you say, I understand why trust may take time. I will keep showing up differently. And you do not have to believe this immediately, because I know consistency matters.
That kind of patience itself is repair. Because it shows you're not just changing to get the reward. You're changing because it's aligned with who you're becoming. It's who you really want to be.
Now let's apply the framework, not by repeating definitions, but by using them. I is for introspection, and introspection asks, what patterns keep repeating even though I understand it? Where do I have insight but not enough practice? Where do I say, I know I do this, but the people around me are still experiencing it?
It also asks, what do I feel when people do not immediately trust my change? Do I get resentful, impatient, defensive, discouraged? Do I want to quit because the change isn't being recognized fast enough?
Introspection helps you see the difference between wanting credit for growth and committing to growth. Next is C for container.
So container asks, what structure supports actual change? What helps me practice when I'm tired, activated, or under pressure?
A container for follow-through might include a clear commitment, a time frame or a check-in, a reminder, a support person, a pause practice, a repair script, a way to notice when the old pattern is starting to kick in again.
The container turns I'll try into here's how I will practice.
And that's what makes change behavior more reliable. Next is A for authenticity. And authenticity asks, am I being honest about what I can realistically practice?
This matters because sometimes people promise too much because they want to be trusted quickly.
And they say, I'll never do that again. Or I'm completely different now. I promise this won't happen anymore.
But authenticity may sound more like, I see the pattern more clearly now. I know this will take practice. Here's the specific behavior I'm committed to, and I want you to know that I'm taking this seriously.
And that's so much more grounded. It's more honest and trustworthy. V is for vulnerability.
Vulnerability asks, can I admit that trust may take time to rebuild?
And that shit requires humility. Because part of you may want the other person to trust you right now. And you may want closeness restored right now. You may want the discomfort to end.
But vulnerability says, I can let the repair take the time it takes. I can be seen in the process and not just after I've perfected it. I can practice without demanding immediate proof that everything's okay.
And that there is the deep work, because it keeps you honest while you're still becoming. Next is S for safety. And safety asks, can my consistency create more safety over time?
Safety is not built in one good conversation. It's built by repeated evidence.
Every time you listen instead of defend, safety grows.
Every time you return instead of disappear, safety grows.
Every time you communicate clearly instead of leaving someone to guess, safety grows.
And safety grows when every time your behavior matches your stated values.
That is how follow-through becomes repair.
All right, now let's look at the changed behavior through the lens of MISS. Because trust is rebuilt relationally. People need to experience the difference. So M is for meet. At the meet stage, changed behavior asks, can I meet the current reality of trust without demanding that it be restored immediately?
Can I meet the fact that someone may still be cautious? Can I meet their hesitation or their need for time? Can I meet the reality that my words alone may not be enough yet?
Meeting reality means not arguing with where trust actually is. I is for invest.
At the invest stage, change behavior asks, am I willing to invest consistent effort over time?
Not intensity, consistency.
Not a dramatic promise, a repeated practice.
Not one big repair gesture, a pattern of becoming more trustworthy.
Investment is where trust gets rebuilt. Next is share information.
At the shared information stage, change behavior asks, can I communicate what I'm practicing and what support I need?
This might sound like, I'm practicing pausing before responding. I'm working on returning after I shut down. I want to check in weekly about whether this feels different. If I get defensive, I'm going to name it instead of arguing.
Sharing information about your practice helps create clarity, but it should not become a demand for praise.
That's right, that's right. I wanted to come back up to, if I get defensive, I'm going to name it instead of arguing. That's one I would like to get in front of. When I'm feeling it, I would like to be able to say, I would like to name it instead of arguing. So what it's not is, look at how much I'm doing.
What it is I want to be transparent about the change I am practicing. So S is for shared experience.
At the share experience stage, change behavior asks, can people experience my growth through what becomes different?
And this is where the work becomes real, right? People experience your pacing, your listening, your ability to return, and your consistency. They also experience your repair and boundaries, how much you care, and how much you follow through.
That is what rebuilds trust, the experience of change. So now we're going to bring it back to you, because all of us have places where we know more than we practice. All of us have patterns we can explain better than we can interrupt. All of us have made promises that needed more structure.
These questions are not here to shame you. They're here to help you move from insight into action, from apology to practice, from intention to providing evidence.
So take your time, bring them into your journal, bring them into the Tuesday night conscious conversation calls, and ask yourself, what actually needs to become different? So we're going to jump into the first set of breakout questions, awareness and orientation. Again, for the first set, take about 3 minutes per question. The goal is to see where awareness has not yet become consistent practice. Don't attack yourself. This is to locate the next responsible step. Remember, we're going to read the question, pause it, take 3 minutes for yourself, answer it, and then come back to the question. And do this for each question as we come across it. So question 1, where do I understand my pattern but still repeating it? Where do I have awareness but not enough changed behavior yet? Where do I keep saying, I know I do this, but people are still experiencing the pattern?
There's a lot of places that I can identify this. What comes to mind immediately is not so much something around repair issues, but something around, change behaviors for myself, for my growth and my betterment, right? I do these intensives that I go to and I get all pumped up and I learn a lot of new stuff, and then I bring it out, and then my practice or my follow through falls off. And so I think what I'm communicating to people is that you can't trust me when I say, oh, I've got this insight. Oh, I learned this thing about myself. Oh, I'm going to, make these changes. And then I don't follow through. And all that communicates is that oh yeah, there she goes again. Talking like she's going to make changes, and then she doesn't make the changes.
I think mine is around impulsivity. I feel like I still have impulsive behaviors. And I don't know quite what to do with it. I think I do, right? I don't think I've come across it recently. But that is one place where I've noticed, at the very least, maybe I'm still looking at it from the lens of what once was, but still embodying what is. Because my relationship with sex and people has always been like a thing for me. And when we first got together and you shared that you want to know, it's like there's parts of me, and it's not even a disregard to our agreement, but it's like a shame that comes over me that why do I still want this? Or why am I still stepping into this idea or feeling, knowing that it can lead to sex with someone and then have to tell you and then feel guilty for impulsivity taking charge. So it's like I think I still feel this in the body. And even though you've told me otherwise, I still feel wrong for it being a part of my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of how sometimes some of this is about how we feel about ourselves and not always necessarily about how other people are being impacted. It's how are we being impacted by what are we doing?
Yeah. Question number 2. Where have I asked someone to trust my intention instead of showing them consistency? Where have I wanted belief through enough evidence, before enough evidence existed? Where have I asked someone to trust that I'm changing before they have felt the change? Anytime we've had a rupture is where I can see myself in this. It's like, but I'm trying, Mama, I'm trying, Mama, I'm trying, Mama, I'm doing it. Even though not enough time has passed. Like the time we were walking to the movies and you told me you felt something different, this is years later where you finally repeated back to me that you feel like you can breathe a little deeper around my responses or my reactions. And it was heartbreaking and fulfilling at the same time because I don't want that to be our relationship. And in the same breath, I've not developed the tools, or I hadn't developed the tools to change that. So when you shared it, it was like, it felt good and I felt shameful at the same time.
I do this in a lot of things. I mean, it's been a long road for me. There's a lot of areas. I'm trying to think of something specific where I always want brownie points for trying. I always want brownie points for having the awareness or gaining the insight without necessarily proving my changed behavior through follow through, right? I always want a little extra pat on the back. And sometimes I have to go through that longer, slower process of, like we talked about, like making the changes, even if nobody's noticing, even if nobody's giving you kudos, right? But continuing to grow and change because it's who I want to be, right? And I really, some of the stuff that I've gone round and round and round about, I finally feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm making some strides in the behaviors that I'm changing, and I have to keep doing it even when nobody's looking.
Yeah. Question number 3. What promise have I made more than once without creating enough structure to keep it? What have I said I would change but not yet practiced consistently? What support, reminder, agreement, or container was missing?
For me, I can think of this thing about my health and my wellness, like saying that I'm going to go to the gym. I'm like a broken record with it, and then I'm not following through. And I think, I mean, this point of structure may be good. I keep trying to build in structure. I may need to build in accountability so people can take me seriously, so people can believe that I'm meaning what I say.
Maybe we could do caning.
We could.
No. I think similarly around my health and doing what I need to be doing. The promise is to live in more alignment with my beliefs around how I take care of myself. Similarly, and I've not created enough structure around it to support it. So I'm going to agree with that, because like the other stuff, I'm leaning into, I'm trying to do my best around changing those patterns.
Yeah.
What I notice where the patterns come in late or last are around myself.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Number 4, what usually interrupts my follow through is shame, avoidance, overwhelm, defensiveness, forgetfulness, lack of structure or resentment, wanting quick results. What gets in the way? I think it's definitely lack of structure and accountability for myself.
Yeah, lack of structure, forgetfulness, and then what's not listed there that happens for me is minimizing. I can minimize. I can say to myself that this change is important, and then in a moment I can minimize it in place of something else that seems to matter more, or I can get distracted from the changes that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
So before moving into the second round, let's pause for a moment, take a breath, and let the first set settle. All right. So question 1, what's in one sentence, these are the in-between questions, these are the reflection questions, right, from the first set. In one sentence, what did you notice about yourself in that round of questions? And then in one word, what are you leaving that round of questions with?
While you reflect on that, as your answer comes up, let that be enough. You don't need to have to turn it into a full explanation. Just notice what surfaced. Second set of breakout questions. Set 2, integration and accountability.
All right, so as he just said, this second set is about integration, not just understanding the need for change, but naming what change actually looks like. Again, take about 3 minutes, turn off the video after we name the question, take 3 minutes to answer it, and then come back and see what we had to say. All right, so question 5, what specific behavior needs to become different for trust to rebuild?
Not a vague intention. What actions need to change? What tone, what response? What boundary or timing? What pattern? What would someone actually experience differently?
For me, this I can bring this back to more relevant to the matter at hand. It's when someone points out that I've made a mistake, or I've dropped the ball, I didn't take care of something I was supposed to take care of, especially if there was a timeliness around it, right? What I can practice is not collapsing. I can practice not turning myself into the worst thing in the world. And specifically how I can do that is by pausing, by breathing, by checking in with my facial expression, my body language, the things that are the tell that I'm in that collapse mode, right? And bring myself back to a state of calm and a state of being able to own what's mine, but not fall into shame.
I think for me, it's about my response. Because I've had people tell me in the past that they're afraid to tell me things because of how I may react. And it's like, I don't want to be that person. There was one person the other day, last week, I said, listen, I'm a big fucking crybaby. Spit it out and allow me just to receive it however I'm going to receive it. But don't handle me with kid gloves. Like, I'll work my own way through what's being said as long as you get to say what you need to say. And don't worry about my response. I'll get through it. I'll get over it. And now on the other side of it, I'll make the adjustments. Sometimes it's hard, and I'm learning how to move through that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's definitely my response.
All right. So question 6, what structure would help me follow through when motivation fades? A reminder, a check-in, journal practice, accountability partner, maybe pausing, therapy or coaching, making a clear agreement. What would support the practice?
I think an accountability partner / coaching, someone who is walking a similar walk as well, that can hold me accountable. Because it's hard for someone who isn't in the mud to hold me accountable for what I'm doing when they're not doing the same work. So it's like I need an accountability partner who's also going through this process to validate what I'm going through, but also to hold me accountable in that validation.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. For me, accountability partner jumped out in that list.
Caning.
Punishment.
Punishment.
Right? Threat of punishment, right? That's one motivation. But Yeah, what supports the practice is also being able to talk about it, is being able to talk it out, right? This brings me back to the thing that you've all heard me talk about for months now, this tendency that I have to just be quiet when I actually need to speak, right? So it's being, and I've actually practiced it lately. As a total aside to this topic, I've in a couple of places I've showed up and told the truth where I would not have ordinarily, and it didn't land bad. It was pretty cool. But I think accountability and having a coach or like a therapist, which I have both of, and those things help me too.
And I just want to point out, truth telling isn't just about straight up lying to someone. Sometimes it's about omitting information I need to say for myself to best represent myself, omitting information to manage someone else's feelings. So like truth telling comes in a lot of different ways.
For me, when I say this, I'm talking specifically about the omitting. I'm not talking about telling overt lies. I'm talking about not speaking when I should show up and speak about something.
Yeah.
And so to that degree, is it a dishonesty? Because I'm either trying to manage someone else's feelings, and more often for me, I'm afraid of how it's going to land. I'm afraid that someone's going to get mad at me or maybe abandon me or blow me off or whatever because they don't want to deal with hearing what it is I had to say. So
thank you, Mama.
yeah. All right, question 7. What would consistency look like over this next month? How would someone know your behavior around something is actually changing? What would they see? What would they feel? What would they no longer have to brace for?
I
don't know. For me, I think that they would see me acting instead of talking. They would see me instead of just talking about an insight or an awareness like we talked about. It's like awareness is great, but it only goes as far as like the actual change behavior. So I think for me, what they would see is change behavior. They would see me doing it consistently, and they would feel like they could trust my word.
Well, I don't like it. They'd have to see me in it again, doing my work to change how I respond and how I react. And it doesn't have to necessarily be direct engagement, but observing me do it with someone else. Right? Because what I've noticed is the closer the person is to me, the longer that threshold is for me to make that change for some ungodly reason. But it's like I hold the people closest to me in a different way than I hold people who aren't so close to me.
Yeah. You've been doing a lot of work on it, though, honestly. It's been really cool.
I'm trying, Mom.
I know. All right, last question. What is one repair I'm willing to repeat? What repair practice that I'll repeat until it becomes believable? What is the practice that needs repetition, not just intention? What are you willing to keep practicing even if trust takes time? For me, for sure, it's the showing up and telling the truth. People need to see me show up and tell the truth consistently to believe that I'm going to do it. And it means I just need to keep doing it.
For myself, it's being able to take feedback without feeling attacked. And I try not to put myself in positions where I need feedback. But it's true. It's like, for years, I felt like feedback is an attack on my choices or my position or my actions. And it's like, dude, maybe they have a better way, a more resourceful way, a less energy expenditure way that I've not seen. And it's like, chill out. So I think that's one is where and how I receive feedback and by who. And I'm trying my best to work on all of this stuff, but I see it.
You're doing great.
Now, before we go into the question review, just a reminder, at the end of each section, there's an additional 2 questions that we don't review here that we only disclose on Tuesday nights. So those are shooting from the hip, deep dive questions. So join us on Tuesday so you can see what those are. And before we close, let's review the questions for this upcoming Conscious Conversation session, month 9, episode 3. Changed behavior and follow through. Set 1, awareness and orientation. Where do I understand my pattern but still repeat it?
2, where have I asked someone to trust my intention instead of showing them consistency?
Number 3, What promise have I made more than once without creating enough structure to keep it?
Number 4, what usually interrupts my follow-through?
The in-between round reflections. In one sentence, what did you notice about yourself in that first set of questions? And in one word, what are you leaving that first round with?
So the second set is about integration and accountability. 5, what specific behavior needs to become different for trust to rebuild?
Number 6, what structure would help me follow through when motivation fades?
7, what would consistency look like over this next month?
And number 8, what is one repair practice I'm willing to repeat until it becomes believable?
All right, so trust is rebuilt by what becomes different. Not once, not dramatically, but consistently.
That is why this work has to become practice, because awareness without practice can still repeat the same impact, and apology without follow-through can start to feel empty.
So inside Conscious Conversations, this is exactly what we practice. Not just understanding the questions, but speaking them, hearing yourself, hearing others, finding the pattern, naming the next step, and then staying in the work long enough for it to actually change something.
Conscious Conversation meets every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And for $30 a month, you get access to that live weekly space, which will be twice a week soon. A place to reflect, practice, and stay connected to the work.
And for those who want more support, the Integration Circle gives you the Tuesday conversations, a private WhatsApp group, community, and a monthly live session with us where you can ask questions, practice what's coming up, and get support integrating what you're learning.
New episodes drop on YouTube and Spotify every Wednesday. So each week you have the episode to sit with before bringing it into the work on Tuesday night Conscious Conversations.
Insight is powerful.
But insight is not the same as transformation.
Transformation is what people begin to experience differently about you.
So instead of only saying, I understand now,
Ask, what will be different now?
and then practice it again
And again.
and again,
Again.
until your growth becomes something people can feel. Next week, we close month 9 with Living the Repair, becoming someone whose growth can be felt, not just explained.
We'll be asking, how do I want people to experience my growth? Where does my behavior still not reflect who I say I'm becoming? And what repair am I still living, not just completing?
That is where this month comes together. Repair becomes not just something we do after rupture, but part of who we are becoming.
New podcast episodes are released every Wednesday, and the work continues inside Conscious Conversations every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
We'll see you there. Thank you guys so much
Thank
for your
you for
support.
joining us.
Yeah, Mama. What's up with Instagram?
All right.